Uniquely.
Uniquely. Uniquely.
Uniquely.
Uniquely.
Uniquely.
Uniquely.
Uniquely.
Uniquely.
Issaquah.
Welcome to another edition of Uniquely Issaquah, a podcast where we talk about things that make Issaquah unique. My name is Mary Lou Pauly. I'm the mayor of the city of Issaquah. And today I have Kaylee Jaech, the executive director of The Garage, with me. Welcome, Kaylee.
Thank you.
So for those in our community who may not know what The Garage is, tell us what it's about.
So the Garage is a teen center, and we serve only high school students. We serve them after school and during breaks in summer. And we just create a safe and welcoming space, and then we let them dictate what happens there. So it can really bring themselves to the space, and then they take ownership of the space. And everything in the building, once you walk in the door, is free. So that is everything from snacks and drinks to we have musical instruments, art supplies, we have school supplies, basic hygiene. And then we also have services like counselors. We have 2 counselors, and we have 2 case. So if you're navigating some systems that are a little bit more difficult, then that's what our
Then you
case
can
managers
help.
can do.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So Kaylee, I met you years ago before she was a council member Jean Michel,
Yeah.
talking about the idea. Where did the idea come from to open this up? Because Garage is pretty new in Issaquah.
It is. We're going to be celebrating our 5th anniversary in September.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And we had been talking about it and then planning for it for about 3 years
Wow.
before we opened. So I had I grew up in Issaquah. I went to Issaquah High School. Came back with my husband. We raised our 2 daughters here. They went to Issaquah High School. Go Eagles. And so I've always worked in nonprofit, but I've always worked in Seattle, and then volunteered because I love kids. And had always, especially when my daughters went through high school, just really noticing that there is just nowhere for them to gather. And our high schools are so large that if you aren't finding your people,
Mhm.
it's very difficult. And so in 2015, I was introduced to Barb DiMichele, and at the time she was working
Wow.
at the
I
Schools
didn't
Foundation.
know. So that's not that long ago.
No,
Huh,
not that long ago.
interesting.
Yeah. So I heard about the Healthy Youth Initiative, and I thought, you're volunteering out of your community, volunteer in your community. And it was actually Diane Gamberry, who was the assistant, still is, for a few more weeks, the
Oh.
assistant to the superintendent, Ron Thiele at the time, introduced us. I've known Diane for forever. And as we were talking about how I could volunteer with the Healthy Youth Initiative, and we kind of hit it off, and we were just chatting. And at the end, I said, I have this crazy idea. I think that Issaquah should have a teen center. And Barb said, I do too. And we've talked about it for years, and it just hasn't gone anywhere. And I said, if you introduce me to the people, she was connected, which is what I didn't have, I'll do it. Like I'll figure it out.
Wow.
So my whole career has been in nonprofit and fundraising. So I was confident that we could raise the money for this. I think this is a really important thing. And I knew this community would welcome it because
Mhm.
it's one of the best communities I think there is. Yeah. And so, and then she introduced me to Robin Callahan, who was the
Oh,
executive
yeah.
director of the Schools Foundation at the time. And they were hiring a development director. And so I met with her, and I said, here's the deal. I will come work for you. I'll raise as much money as I can for you. I'm pretty good at this. I've been doing this for a minute. But on the side, I want you to know that I am going to be launching this committee, and we're going to do some feasibility and figure out like what the community needs and what we're going to build. And when I'm ready, that's what I'm going to go do.
Oh, that's awesome.
And she was so generous in accepting that and hiring me. I mean, that was one of the luckiest things that's ever happened to me.
Oh, you've been very fortunate. I mean, I'm really glad that you are doing work in the community. This is wonderful for us, but you were working with some real rock stars there.
It was like stars aligning kind of
Yeah,
moment. You know, those
yeah.
times in your life where you just know that without whatever you believe, fate, karma, whatever, but stars aligned, man.
That's great.
It was amazing.
So that was 2015.
Yeah.
When did the garage open?
September 2018.
Okay, so
Yeah.
3 years in the planning, celebrating your 5th year.
Yeah. So I worked for the Schools Foundation for 2 years. I quit September of 2017 because the city had very generously donated our building. And at that point, I knew I needed to raise money for it. And I didn't feel comfortable raising money for both
Right.
organizations.
Right.
So,
And where is the garage for those who may not yet have a teenager or not know about it?
yeah. So we are in a building on First Avenue Southeast. And so that sits across the lawn from the community center.
Yep.
And kind of across Bush from the food bank. So if you know where
That's
one of
great.
those is, yeah.
You know, one of the fun things that you said in your first answer was about programming and events and activities. And, you know, tomorrow is June 1st, and we will be celebrating Pride Month. And the garage always hosts an event. I've been able to attend a couple of times. So
Yeah.
do you want to tell the residents in the community about what this year's event is going to be like?
Yeah, sure. Well, first I want to give a shout out to the teens that were with us 4 years ago. This is our 4th Pride event. And it was in the middle of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And they really wanted to do something to celebrate. I think, you know, not a lot of people were feeling comfortable getting together for a big Pride event. And so they decorated the street in front of our building and had beads and candy, and folks decorated their cars. And they would just drive up and down, and we would scream at them. It was fantastic. It was the best.
I went to that one.
Yes,
was
yes,
really,
you
really
did.
very creative COVID solution, and they had a lot of fun.
Yeah. And so I think our Pride event is just an example of what teens can do in our space. So every year it's gotten a little bit bigger. This year it's even bigger. So that I think last year we had about 40, 45 people come and attend. It's open to the public. So on June 24th, you can come down to the garage and community center grass. So we've secured the grass for the day. We're going to have a food truck this year.
Oh, great.
We have a sponsorship with Visit Issaquah. They're helping us with the event, and so is Coca-Cola. So we're able to secure the food truck. We're going to have the stage up. We'll have a bit of programming, and then there'll be arts and crafts. We always have activities and crafts. And then I've heard that the teens are planning a water fight.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. And
They're teens.
and water fight really means the opportunity to get all of the staff as wet as possible. Yes, with water balloons and water guns. So
it sounds fun. And
it's the best.
That grassy area you're talking about is where we do concerts on the green. A lot of people are familiar with that area.
Yeah.
Well, thinking back over these 5 years, what has surprised you about the garage? Maybe something you didn't expect.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the thing that still surprises me is that we get 100 to 150 kids a day. Like that just boggles my mind. Yeah. And I'm let's see. I'm stumbling over my words. I love to watch the community that the garage builds. I'd love to watch how welcoming the teens are with each other. If you're sitting alone in the corner for a couple of days, you know, chances are, well, I'll come bug you for one. But oftentimes other teens are inviting you in. Yeah. So not so much a surprising thing. I don't know. I think
heartwarming thing.
It is a heartwarming thing. And I think in this day and age right now, what we're hearing in the media, from our politicians, there's just so much intolerance
Mhm.
and hate. And so to walk in and see that much joy and
Kindness.
yeah,
That's
it's
amazing.
it yeah, it makes my heart sing.
And
Yeah.
you did mention too about having the students that come do all the programming. So have they just like blown your mind with their ability to organize and create
Yeah.
and innovate?
It's amazing. Well, and it's so organic, and it just it's amazing how it just kind of takes off. So, for an example, we opened with an acoustic guitar and 2 ukuleles. And then and we have suggestion boxes. And so teens, if they want to ask for something anonymously, they can put it in the suggestion box. We also do listening sessions every month so that they can tell us what's going well, what
Oh,
they'd like to
great.
change. And then obviously staff is there every day for them to interact and ask for things that they need. But so now we have 2 electric guitars, a bass. We got a full real drum set from Foundry 10, which is another nonprofit, and a full keyboard.
Wow.
So Wednesdays now has become jam day. So we get pretty consistently about 6 or 7 students that come in and they just
Wanna
play. And they play for 2 or 3 hours. And one student the other day I walked in and he's sitting at the drum set with a baseball cap on, and he had duct taped a drumstick to the bill of his cap, and he's playing the guitar and just beating the
With
drum
the
in rhythm.
hat.
Oh
That
my
is
gosh.
awesome.
I was dying. But yeah,
That's pretty cool that it's grown from 2 ukuleles to a guitar.
Right?
I love that.
yeah.
So now that you're 5 years in, you have watched different students come through. Do any of the students ever come back and check in
Yeah.
with you? What's
They-
that like?
They do. They do. In fact, we have a group of students that are back from college. They just finished their freshman year, and they come and have lunch with us every Wednesday.
Wow.
Yeah, my staff, they play Catan. I don't know if you know that game. I
I'm
think it's a
terrible at it.
horrible,
Yeah.
horrible game, and nobody should play it ever. But we all sit and have lunch, and then they play Catan.
That's nice.
It is. We were invited to a drag show up at Western that some of our students who graduated put on. The fact that they want to invite us to things or that they want to come back and say hey that's
amazing.
everything.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's great.
Yeah.
And that just leads me to another question. So obviously them enjoying themselves and making a connection and coming back, that's fabulous. You have staff working there. Are there any other stories you can think of why it is such a rewarding place to work? Have you heard from any of the other employees about things that warm their heart or make them feel good or just things that have gone really well?
Oh gosh, there's so many. I don't let me think of a good one. I mean, so we had a student that was having a really hard time in school, and we were able to get them some tutoring, and they graduated.
Wow.
In their sophomore year, they were failing every class. They were able to graduate, and they're at Central now.
Wow.
So that's amazing.
That is amazing.
Yeah. But let me tell you, I mean, I could tell you many stories of where one of my counselors, was able to make a difference, or a case manager. And I think sometimes when we think about teens and we think about a teen center, the perception is that, we're coming in, we're saving them, we're helping them because they don't have what they need. And I think that we couldn't be further from the truth of that, right? They are very capable. So I would just okay, the other day, I think it's spring and everyone is feeling that spring fever.
Mhm.
And so a group of students were sitting around on the couches and chairs, and they were playing telephone like you do in preschool, for crying out loud. And They were rolling, like they were giggling.
Hysterical.
It was the best. And
Yeah.
we all stood around and just like wallow in the joy. It's fantastic.
That is great.
Yeah.
I love that. So let's look forward. So 5-year anniversary, 5 years from now, we'll probably have um, still as many high school students as we have, if not more, because
Mhm.
Issaquah is a growing community. Just can you imagine what's it like 5 years from now?
Yeah.
How do you think the garage will evolve or change or not change?
So we have some pretty significant plans for change this next year. So if everything goes as we're hoping for, we'll have a separate location in Sammamish serving
Oh, that's amazing.
Skyline, Eastlake,
Yeah.
and Eastside Catholic. We're working with a developer up there and hoping to get some um, a temporary facility while they build out their multi-use space, and then
Yeah.
hopefully the garage will be located in their multi-use space.
That's
So
awesome.
that would be pretty amazing.
Because our sister city, Sammamish, is growing and changing, and there
Yeah.
are 3 high schools on that. Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah, and
Wow.
and we're talking like almost 5,000 students, 5,000
Yeah.
high school
Yeah.
students, right? So there's a lot of capacity that we could be providing support and services.
Thank you for mentioning that. I think sometimes not everybody understands that it's just not the nonprofit. Sometimes it's the private nonprofit partnership that makes
Mhm.
something actually happen. And when we have these new buildings coming into town, that is amazingly generous that they are working with you and trying to find a way to serve the 5,000 student population there. That's pretty
Right?
cool.
It's pretty
Yeah.
amazing. And again, one of those things, stars align. The superintendent, Kaylee, had met with them and introduced us, and they came and visited the garage, and we're really excited about
Oh,
that.
great.
So we would love to be up there. And we also launched our Blackthorn program in January. And right now it's housed out of the garage.
Well,
But
let's talk about that a little bit. What is the
yeah,
Blackthorn?
so um, very quickly after we opened the garage, we were seeing the effects of what happens when a teen is unhoused. Um, East King County is a bit of a desert when it comes to services for
Mhm.
our teens. And so if you want to find support for them, so if you want to find them a shelter or anything longer term, you have to move them out of their community. And that's just really, well, I think we're not doing a good job as adults in our community if we're sending our teens out or
It's so
anyone out.
disruptive to their lives.
It is.
It's a big negative.
Yeah. And the first thing that goes is school. And we know that if you can graduate from high school, the odds of you thriving in your adult life they just go up exponentially. So a group came together and adults and teens, and we really looked at what was the need, where were services being held, and what we bring to kind of bridge the gaps in our area for our teens. So we landed on Blackthorn, and Blackthorn is a Celtic word that means hope in a time of devastation
Mm.
and protection. So it's a native plant, and yeah, the teens named it. The teens named the garage. There's a theme here. But what we heard from youth experiencing homelessness is that they really, more often than not, they wanted a home. So an institutional facility, a group home, a shelter is just a Band-Aid. It's not a place where they can maybe unpack some of the trauma or crises that they've been going through and then continue to thrive and stay on a good path. And so we looked at some models and we landed on a host home model. So the Blackthorn program is comprised of 2 parts. One is a drop-in center, much like the garage, in that any teen is welcome to be there, although it will have different amenities. So it'll have showers, it'll have a kitchen, it'll have lockers, so you can lock up your things if you're couch surfing. That's one of the reasons they don't go to school is they have to carry all their
Right.
belongings with them every day. And then there would be counselors and case managers, and then the housing portion of it is a host home model. So a host home it's a recognized, licensed, legislated service or program that you can provide in the state of Washington. And we are a licensed provider. And what that means is that we work with families, homes in our community. They go through all the vetting that a foster family would go through. So your background checks, home visits, all of that. And then we match a teen with a home. And that could be for an emergency situation. So maybe just a weekend or a week. It could be a short term, so maybe up to 6 months, or it could be long term. I have watched 14 and 15-year-olds come living in a home that is unsafe and untenable for them to thrive. So foster care is definitely an option, but the parents lose. They become a ward of the state,
Right.
and they're often taken out of their community. So what this model does is it keeps the birth family or the guardian engaged as much as possible. So if there is possibility of reunification, kind of mending those relationships,
Right.
we're working on that.
Everybody getting the services that they need.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because more often than not, it's not that the family doesn't want to be able to care for the teen. There can be lots of different things going on that make that untenable. So, but at the very least, we want to keep them in their school with their support systems and their
friends.
yeah, which is just paramount to them. So we are currently looking for additional space for that. And then the last piece on sort of in our minds right now is liberty. Because when we opened the garage, we really thought, oh, we'll land in the middle of the school district.
And they will all come.
And they will all come. Not so much. And we can talk about transportation, Mary Pauly later. Yeah, so I think we would love to have some presence there. And I think it could look different than the other locations because it's only one school. It's so tucked back kind of in its own place. So we've been talking to administration, we've been talking to the social worker at Liberty and just envisioning what we could do.
Possibilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have to look the same everywhere. I think that's really great that you have such a flexible model. And the transportation is a huge issue. To have like 120 square mile school district means our schools are not necessarily all close together.
Right.
And some of them don't have driver's license. So
Yeah.
hard for them to participate.
Absolutely.
Well, that was great, Kaylee. I wanted to thank you for all that you do. I think our community is so fortunate that all the stars align and you were able to do it.
Thanks.
How can people in our community support the garage?
Oh, thanks for asking. Well, first and foremost, we're a nonprofit. And so I would be remiss if I didn't remind folks that you can visit our website, make a donation, issaquahteencafe.org. And that's the best way to help. Most of my budget, 85% of my budget goes to staffing. So it's just really making sure that we've got the right people in the room doing this work. And then, connect with me. I think it takes our whole community together, building this tight ecosystem that creates the services and the support that we all need, right? And so if you, we have a dad whose boys went through the garage and now they're in college, and I think the older one may have graduated, and he still brings gluten-free cookies. So,
Lovely.
so we're always open if there are ways that we can partner or connect.
That is great. Well, thank you for joining me today on Uniquely Issaquah. We all got to learn a little bit more about the garage.
Thanks.